Hi, welcome to Ask the Manager. Here we are back in remote with Google Meet. And so we don't have a guest. So the town manager has to deal with me once again. And I think it's appropriate for us to start with COVID because the numbers have been phenomenal in a bad way. So you had said at a selectmen's meeting that in 8 days, I think there were, where is it? 8 days, 7 days, you had 804 cases. And in the last 2 weeks, you had 676 and then you had 629. So I hope that 629 means we're headed down. What's our numbers looking like for this week?
Yeah, so the numbers do seem headed in a much more favorable direction. Saturday of January 15th happened to be our largest single day, 203 cases in that one day. But
What was the
since
date?
then, Saturday, January 15th was
So is that
203.
related to New Year's?
I don't know. I mean, it could be. It's about 2 weeks thereafter. The cases, since Saturday have been much more modest and more like what I am now seeing as kind of the beginning of the big spike, which happened, started the week between Christmas and New Year's and has been going. But now it seems to be coming back down. We're looking at about, I don't know, between 45 and 50 cases a day. Still very high, if you look at the long term, but definitely there for a while. Earlier this month, we were averaging over 100 cases a day. Of course, 804 cases in 7 days. So, yeah, things do seem to be improving.
So let's hope it continues to improve and that we don't get any other variants. The interesting fact is that 88% of the population has received one dose in Shrewsbury.
Yes.
I'm still surprised that 88 is as high as we can get. I don't know what it'll take. Along with that, the COVID deaths since December 21st, I don't know if it's changed, but it's been 0. Is it the
Right.
same?
I did not check this week, but yes, there haven't been any that I'm aware of before this week. So that's a good thing.
I think the important message for people is, although many and most people that we hear about with COVID manage it quite easily right now, and they have mild to moderate symptoms, people are still getting very, very sick. And so it's not 100% that it's just cold symptoms. I think we have to remember there are people that get very sick, and it's not necessarily just the old people that are getting sick. I know I have a friend right now that's very ill with it, and we need to remember that and not let up. Keep wearing our masks, keep cleaning our hands, and keep distancing.
Definitely.
And town hall is only open by appointment.
Yes, it's only open by appointments. We did that really as we have in the past to manage service expectations. So we're back to 50-50 staffing levels with half the employees in the office and half working remotely from an office standpoint. And this is a high volume time of the year for us with tax bills and abatements and things like that, and census materials. And that's just a very high volume time. So we wanted to make sure that if we did need to meet with anyone, that we had enough staff on hand and we could properly allocate time to meet with individuals. So,
although it's by appointment only, unless people are working in town hall, it's important for people to remember that the rest of the employees are working from home, correct?
Absolutely. Yep. Everyone is working on a daily basis unless they're on leave. And, we've just quickly pivoted back to our remote means. We have, the main landline phones work remotely through a software package that we have. So on a day-to-day basis, we have normal attendance, just half here and half in a remote location.
And is the cleaning any different now than it was, say, last winter?
Yeah, it is, and it's not as intense. We are cleaning more than we did pre-pandemic, but in consultation with Dr. Hirsch and others in the health and public health realm, the surface transmission of COVID-19 isn't as bad as it was originally believed in the beginning. So we've gone away from things like uh, frequent misting with bleach and other things like that. So, but we're doing the normal wiping the surfaces after individuals come in for appointments, things like that.
And I understand you interviewed a finalist for the town accountant position.
We did, yes, and the Board of Selectmen voted to offer, and she's accepted the position of town accountant, Amy Lee. Amy is the current assistant town accountant, and she's been with the town for 22 years, which isn't quite as long as Mary Thompson, who is the outgoing town accountant and now assistant town manager, who's been with the town since 1986. So a lot of stability in the town accountants department, a lot of experience, and we're very proud to have Amy start in the town accountant's role actually a week from today, which would be Thursday the 27th.
So Amy's been in town and working with Mary right along, so she's fully aware that she has big shoes to fill.
That is true. That is true.
And we're lucky and fortunate that Amy's prepared and ready to take on that role. So
yeah,
and we wish Mary Thompson an awful lot of happiness in her retirement.
Yes. Well, Mary's going to be with us for a while. We're not going to let her leave just yet. She'll continue just in the assistant town manager's role. I say just, but she'll continue in the assistant town manager's role. Last I heard, but I just don't want to ask a question that I don't want the answer to. She'll be with us through the end of October. So,
so that's good. So that's
yes.
good. So is that a full-time position also?
It is, yeah. And we're very, I think, strategic in how we approach this. So Mary was, promoted to assistant town manager and held the town accountant title, since July 1st. And we want to be very deliberate, give ourselves an opportunity. If we didn't find the right candidate the first time, that we were never in a position that we had to rush this. And now we have just a nice, long, smooth timeline to transition all those responsibilities and get through some critical milestones throughout the course of any fiscal year. And the biggest one is the closeout of a fiscal year. So, our fiscal year runs from July 1st through June 30th. So we'll have both Mary and Amy, and have Amy's assistant town accountant position backfilled for that very critical time in the summer months, and going through town meeting and preparing the budget. So we were purposeful about having a long overlap, because as I previously stated, Mary has been the town accountant since Dick Carney hired her in 1986. So it's been quite some time.
And she was a kid when she came on board.
Yeah.
I can't remember what town she came from when we interviewed her. But so will Amy take on assistant town manager role in October or whenever?
No, that position would be opened up. Amy will stay just in a town accountant's role. And then that position the assistant town manager position will be opened up for a competitive process.
And John LeBeau has stated that he will not seek re-election. That will be strange.
Yes.
How many years has he been a selectman, or how many terms? Do you know?
I believe it's 6 terms, 6 full terms, 18 years.
18 years.
Yeah.
So he's earned his retirement there too.
Absolutely.
So, and so we wish him well, although he's not going anywhere till May. with the election. The warrant for town meeting is being formulated now, correct?
Yeah, we're in the budget process and starting to think about those priorities for the annual town meeting.
And with that, what's this tax relief fund request to be on the warrant? Who's requesting that, and what does that mean, and what's the impact?
So this is really a collaboration with the Board of Selectmen and the new principal assessor, Ruth Anderson. And this would establish a tax relief fund where the town would receive donations from anyone who's interested. There'll be an option on your own tax bill to contribute. And I think the principal assessor, Ruth Anderson, has some interest in reaching out to some of the more well-to-do nonprofit entities in town who don't pay any taxes, and kind of asking them to help contribute to seniors with income challenges to help offset their tax bills. So that's really the goal. It's a town-driven initiative where individual taxpayers and other interested parties could contribute to this fund and help provide relief to those in need. And the real benefit of this is that, you know, we're not increasing taxes to cover someone else's taxes who aren't, you know, isn't or won't be paid. We're doing it proactively through donations without any impact on the tax rate.
And so that nothing happens with that until it goes to town meeting. It needs to be approved.
Right. We need to establish that fund. That is correct.
Now, is there a model for that anywhere else in other towns?
Well, there definitely is. You know, Ruth Anderson was the assistant assessor in Hopkinton, and they had it there. I'm sure there are other towns who established similar, but I definitely know that Hopkinton has had it, and Ruth has had experience in administering and establishing a program like that. So it's really a great opportunity, Donna, as you'll remember, going through the override development process. The Board of Selectmen had concerns with the impact on all taxpayers, but especially those who were in need financially. And this is just, you know, in addition to some of the provisions that were passed in the fall to expand tax relief programs. So it's really focused on trying to keep Shrewsbury affordable from a tax standpoint.
And I noticed that Lakeway is busy no matter when you pass by that shopping area. It's always very busy and vibrant. And when I pass by Tavern in the Square and that parking lot is full, first I wonder why are all those people in one place? But then I see money flying into the town. I see revenue coming in, and that's very good for Shrewsbury. And I'm hoping the other restaurants are as fortunate as Tavern in the Square, because that's a very busy place, and it doesn't matter what time of day, whether it's lunchtime or dinner time or later on. It's just amazing, and that's good. That's good for the town.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, so part of our local receipts, as you know, Donna, is the meals excise tax. So those dollars get returned to the town. And when we set our estimate for meals tax, really last year at this time, still a lot of uncertainty. But I'm really happy that halfway through the year, we've collected about 80% of our total estimate. So we're ahead of the curve for the year. As you mentioned, a lot of people are still dining out, which does bring revenue to the town. And really, generally, in those local receipts, I'm very pleased that we're pretty much mirroring last year. And I can be pleased with that because we had a really sharp V-shaped recovery as far as economic conditions in town, where in fiscal year 2021, we rebounded from, you know, a tough year in 2020. And I'm seeing that steady trend at least continue. The first 6 months of 2022 have mirrored the first 6 months of 2021. That big chunk of funds from motor vehicle excise tax is yet to be billed, and we've yet to receive what that total commitment or how much money we'll bill is. But all the other indicators right now, including continued strong revenues coming in for licenses and permits, it just couldn't be happier. It's a lot of activity, a lot of interest, and a lot of vibrancy in the Shrewsbury economy.
And we'll get to it later, but those local receipts are so important. And the automobile excise tax is critical because that's pretty much, if I'm correct, 50% of local receipts are from auto excise tax. So hope people want to buy cars. Tell them to get out there and help the car business. But then that's an issue of dependent upon the availability of cars to buy also. But then again, when you drive by all those car lots in town, there's plenty of cars there. So hopefully people.
I certainly isn't perhaps reflective of the entire car market, but I do know a friend who had ordered a new vehicle and had to wait for it and was originally told it would be 6 to 9 months, and they ended up receiving it in 3 months. So hopefully those backlogs are starting to unclog themselves, and that industry is getting a little bit more back to normal as well, which, as you noted, is like 50% of the total local receipts. We budgeted just a little over $6 million, so it's a significant part of our revenue stream.
So we can once again hope, I think we were doing this around 2008, but we can once again hope that people decide that they want to buy new cars or any car, because even the newer used cars have a high enough excise rate.
Right. That's right.
So, and they should all buy their kids' cars too while they're at it, because then it's all relative. Now, Graystar Development, before I go any further, when I look quickly at Graystar, I see a different word. And so if I ever mispronounce it, it's just that I'm glancing at it and calling it something else. But Graystar Development is on South Street. Where is that exactly located?
So it's 409 South Street. And it's basically the lot at the intersection of South Street and Chestnut, right along Route 20. So it's adjacent to the UMass administration property.
Is that where the Allen property was, or across the street?
Right across the street from the Allen property. This is the Russell land.
Okay, and so how would that impact the town? What they're planning there?
So Graystar is a residential developer. They're proposing to construct a little less than 200 housing units. It would be kind of an apartment.
Houses?
No, apartments, sorry. 200 residential units. Okay. It's an apartment style, over 55 age restricted community. They are dedicating 25% of those units to be affordable, and those units wouldn't necessarily be age restricted. So it will have an impact, definitely an upward, number of new residents coming into town. It's not simple, but it's an easier type of residential development to manage from a town infrastructure standpoint. It's a lot different than 200 single family homes. So it's a lot easier to service them. It's an over 55 age restricted community that, have some, activities and things like that. So it sounds like a very nice place to live for those that are interested. And, normally, all things being equal, that type of development has a less impact on total services that are required for the town. We often don't see, a significant increase in comparison to an age restricted complex for medical calls and things like that. I know folks may think that, but it's not quite that different. Um, an assisted living facility, of course, but that's not what this is. So Graystar's a big company. They're coming in. This land is not within the residential, is not part of our residential zoning district. It's a commercial zone, limited industrial, and they are using what's known as Chapter 40B. And they are taking what's called a friendly 40B approach, and that they have come to the town and asked for us to acknowledge the affordable component of their development in exchange for us negotiating a development agreement with them, which would set some terms and conditions. And by going through this friendly 40B process, it opens them up to for state dollars from the Department of Housing and Community Development to help finance their project. So
for the public, 40B means for us, no stopping it.
Correct.
Friendly 40B means they're willing to work with the town. And
correct.
So they're willing to work with the town under the guidelines of state law that the town cannot control or stop them from coming in.
Right.
The good
So they
news
exempt
is,
it. Yep.
and the good news is it would be more senior housing versus a large amount of school children. Although we keep talking about school children like they're bad, it's just, we just don't want it impacting the buildings with population.
Right.
But we still want children in town.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. So that part of the conversations with Graystar is, well, what if the town decides not to participate in this local initiative program, or LIP, which makes the 40B friendly, right? So this agreement up front, and they explained to us, showed to us that the financing that they're able to get through the Department of Housing and Community Development with this LIP agreement enables them to develop a 55 plus community with only the number of units that are proposed, a little less than 200. If the town wasn't willing to, they were still going to move forward with a housing development, an unfriendly 40B, and likely would have many more units, and they would not be age restricted because of the different financing mechanisms that are in place. So there's no stopping it, as you said, either way. And I think this is the best way to take a more cooperative approach with the developer. So we'll continue to work with them.
What's the timeline?
So their timeline is to get permitting underway formally throughout the summer months of this year, and try to start construction about a year from now.
Okay.
And then it would be another, 12 to 14 months to construct a project like that, to begin, leasing the properties. So you're probably looking at early 2024.
So it gives us a little time, but the other thing we have to remember is that it's not just the school department that's impacted by this construction or any construction. All of your town services are impacted.
Yep.
And when you talk about senior housing, to me, that means more ambulance calls also. So all of the town departments are impacted.
Yeah, and when we look at, you're absolutely right. But if we want to think about public safety for a while, it's just, simple ratios and numbers, right? The more the population goes up, the more likely there are for calls for service, whether it's police or medical. And then as bigger, larger mass buildings like this come into play, and we get more of them, right? We have one tower truck, and we have the ability to call in mutual aid from Westboro and Worcester and Northborough to bring in their, ladder or tower trucks. But there becomes a point in time where we have to start having to say, like, what is it that we need to be able to handle, an event at more than one place? God forbid that would happen. And we're still in significant need to continue to look at our staffing levels in the public safety departments. We still, when we dispatch a piece of fire apparatus from Station 3 on Centec, which would be the primary station that would respond to this 409 South Street address, or the first station, we only have 2 firefighters on the truck. And if you're looking at a 50 or 60 or 100,000 square foot building, that's a lot to ask 2 firefighters to do. Now, certainly we're going to dispatch everyone from all locations and they're going to get there, but as you know, seconds and minutes count, and we need to keep our public safety officials safe while they're performing their duties. So it brings pressure to the town and our services. The vibrancy is great, but we just have to continue to grow. And of course, this is an undeveloped parcel, and we will receive new tax revenue from it. And it would be dedicated to those services. That's what the taxes are for.
And we like the revenue.
Yes.
So Kevin Esposito is a new tree warden?
Well, he was certified as a tree warden. And, Nick Rapecta will still retain the title, but it's interesting that you bring that up, Donna, because we've been considering, we have a lot more, need to manage trees than we have in the past, and we're thinking about, how we combine budgets and properly manage the needs in those areas, and so we're trying to get a couple more people certified. So Nick will continue to be the tree warden, and Kevin has passed the certification, and Kevin, of course, is responsible for the maintenance of all of our public grounds. The cemetery and the parks and things like that. So it's really important certification for him.
So congratulations to Kevin, and we could end up having 3 or 4 wardens walking around.
Right. Yeah.
And how does that impact salary?
Nothing really. It's a professional certification that he received. There's nothing, just part of his current duties and something that he was interested in doing, and we're grateful for that. And I was just going to mention that, we've received notice from the Department of Agricultural Resources that the remnants of a spotted lanternfly, which is an invasive species, were found in Shrewsbury. So the spotted lanternfly loves things like fruits and some ornamental plants, and they, suck the moisture or the
life right out of the plant.
Yeah, exactly. So
not funny. I mean, we have to have a tree cut down because of the caterpillars and the impact over the last couple. Not last summer, but the 2 summers or spring times before that, and it killed the tree in our yard. And I can imagine people with ornamental plants aren't going to be happy if they start moving towards their neighborhood. I know we won't be happy. So what will be done? What's the plan?
So the Department of Agriculture has the lead, and they're going to, survey trees in the area. It was found, near the center, near Flynn's truck stop, Route 20 and 140. So hopefully it's an isolated incident, but we'll get some extra eyes in here. The Asian Longhorn Beetle Program staff at the state level are trained to recognize this as well. So it's something that we'll just monitor and hopefully not allow it to get ahead of us.
So they're still monitoring for the Asian Longhorn beetles also in town.
Absolutely.
And we've seen the traps around, and we see the people that are inspecting around town. So now, is it the same people or a different group of people that will come in for this next batch?
I'm not exactly sure. The state hasn't, really evolved their program. It's kind of an emerging issue that they're dealing with. I would like to think that they would capitalize on the existing resources and programs, since it's very similar effort, but we haven't officially heard yet.
And while we're going back to certifications, Alex Martinez attended a program about municipal finance at Suffolk.
Yeah.
And Alex is in your office.
Yep. She is the management analyst in the office of the town manager and has the day-to-day lead on the the budget process and those type of financial activities. She supports the finance committee, so it's a great certification again for her, and a lot of hard work to get through that program. So proud of her efforts.
And congratulations to her. She also supports the police building committee.
Absolutely, yes.
And how many people are in your office now?
It's grown. So the core office for the Board of Selectmen and town manager, 2 administrative assistants and a management analyst. And then in the fiscal year 23 budget, of course, 2 assistant town manager positions, 1 for community development, 1 for administration and finance. And then in the fiscal year 23 budget, we are separating out human resources. So there'll be an HR director, an HR coordinator, and the benefits coordinator will sit in that office. So currently all of those are officially under the office of the town manager right now, but that was part of our plan in 2018 when we established the HR function.
And you're packing them in where? You're packing these people in? They share, what do they take turns sitting at the desk?
So we're making some, what I would call minor renovations within the office area that's adjacent to us that used to be for a long time the recreation area. So we've actually combined this entire office area into one larger office suite, took down the wall that used to be in the conference room or the HR coordinator's office. And so it's now opened up. You can walk without going into the hallway from the town manager's administration area, the whole way over to what used to be the recreation department office.
And historically, there was a Board of Selectmen's office in that area that disappeared years before you came. But so you just keep moving. Does that mean next you're going to take over the school department section of the building and move them down?
As long as they're not watching, don't tell them.
Maybe you could. Maybe you could keep the police station up and let the school department go in the old police station.
Yeah. I mean,
then they could have, what would you call it? When they have, I don't know, we used to call them PMs, when people used to have to stay after school for punishment. They could use the cells, and if anybody's acting up, tell them if they don't behave, they could go in there, and they're not arrested. They're just in the school department.
That probably doesn't meet the 2022 standards, but
I guess we'll
not. Check on that.
I don't think it would.
But Donna, it is true. When we are looking at this police and municipal campus project, that's what we did study, and we do have feasibility plans for the renovation of the town hall, and it was not just a want; it was a need, because we are in the cannibalization mode over here in the town hall, where we're turning conference rooms into meeting spaces, so we can house the staff and meet the service demands of the residents. So it's something that continues to be on my radar. I heard a lot of it during the budget review process this year that we're going through with department heads, especially where we have co-located offices like the building inspector and planning and economic development. There's a volume of people in those areas where it's becoming a challenge to talk on the phone, because you have 4 people on the phone at one time, all having different conversations, or having a virtual meeting and not being able to go to a conference room. So space is a real challenge and a need for us to address here at the town hall. But we did the right thing in 2020 and scaled back the project to keep the impact off of the tax bills and ensure that we could get the police station built. But it's a problem that hasn't gone away.
So if you look back to that planning, and now as a few more years will go by before anything ever comes to fruition, you would have to go back to the drawing board and start over. It couldn't simply be whatever you thought it was going to be a couple of years back when it was just an idea and a thought. You're going to have to go back and really look at, because that just won't, I bet whatever you were going to do won't be big enough anyhow.
Right.
So
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
it's a good thing that the project did get put on hold, because now you can give it another look, because there's been significant growth in town hall, but not that that was a bad thing. It was good planning, but that will certainly have an impact. And if you look at how long the next construction should be expected to last, whether it's
Right.
25 years or 50 years, it gives you at least a broader picture. So hopefully it was meant to be.
Right.
So if you can, I'm getting calls from hospitals. That's okay. So now there was online credit card payment. And the online credit card payment was really like exciting. I couldn't wait to share that information. But you have to pay every time you make an online payment. That's different than what people who are mostly accustomed to doing, because there are services out there where you process your credit card online, and that's a free payment. You process through the credit union, and there's no charge for that. I mean, it's only 50 cents, but it's an annoying 50 cents. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, so it's a reality of us processing those credit card payments. There are fees associated with them that right now we've asked, the individual who elects to pay that way to pay. However, as soon as the FY23, the fiscal year 23 coming up in July 1, we are really encouraging or want to encourage more people to, pay that way. So, I can't guarantee it right now, but there's a strong likelihood that we'll budget to cover those expenses with the banks, rather than, assessing that fee at the time of the transaction like it is right now. And we hope that encourages more people. We've delayed doing that because we're actually reviewing different software packages right now. So residents can have more of an account with the town. So it can be like a single sign on. You can go in there and you can see your tax bill. You can navigate to other departments, and it's not just, the one-off transaction where you just go on and pay your tax bill. There'll be more of a history and, an account, username, password, historical information, things like that. So we're working on that right now. And once we're able to implement that, those fees will likely go away, and they'll go away for the user. We'll still have to pay them. It's a reality. Every business does. But we want to encourage folks to use that option.
So it's unfortunate. You mean to tell me that when we process card payments through the bank or the credit union, it's a cost to the credit union?
Yeah, it's a cost to the entity that's interacting with that bank. So every business, whether it's, I don't know how they structure their deals. I'm sure there's a certain amount of volume where they start to waive the fees, but yeah, it's just the cost of that transaction that the bank assesses upon us.
Well, we need to talk to the bank. Tell them, knock it off. So there's truck bans on different roads, and usually it seems to be like a connecting road will people on those streets will request a truck ban. Now, I've noticed on a couple of recent occasions that there are trucks going down Old Mill Road, and I wonder if it's that they just don't see the signs.
Yeah, it's been a challenge. Lakeway Commons certainly has provided more opportunities for trucks to be unfamiliar with the area, but have a destination to get through. The local trucks are excluded. So as people have all things delivered to their house, and always have, but whether it's a snow blower or a larger appliance, those trucks can get a lot bigger. Normally they're not 18-wheel tractor trailers, so they should mostly be prohibited, but it's a challenge. The advent of navigation apps on phones and in vehicles, they don't recognize those exclusions all the time, and that sends those drivers there. So it's definitely an ongoing battle. We try to do the best we can to patrol the area, reach out to the truck companies when residents are able to identify, the name on the side of the truck. The police department calls them, and we continue to remind all businesses in that area, especially Lakeway Commons, that they need to advise their deliveries that they cannot come across Old Mill Road.
Okay. And now, is Keith Elms just the animal control officer?
Yes.
Or he's not the health inspector? He's just the
He is
animal
not.
control officer.
Correct.
And he works in cooperatively with how many other towns?
Grafton and Westboro also.
And how has
Two
that
other
been
towns.
working out?
It works out really well. Our time spent in those communities is very limited. It's more of a mutual aid during vacations, things like that, or if there's serious incidents, but very little demand outside of the town of Shrewsbury. But we are part of that 3-town intermunicipal agreement with Grafton and Westboro.
What's your reaction to the Beal reuse resident reaction?
I understand the concerns of the residents, and I'm looking forward to having a discussion at the upcoming Board of Selectmen meeting this coming Tuesday with the board about how they would like to see that project turn out at the end based upon that public feedback. And I'm I know the Board of Selectmen is going to be responsive to what they've heard in those public hearings. I think that the seeing that transformation on paper, and the volume of change in residential units and things like that is quite not alarming, but it's noticeable, right? It feels like it's going to change the neighborhood significantly. It is the town center. It is, historically the most heavily populated aspect of any city or town across the country. I think we do have an opportunity to help build that vibrancy by bringing more residential units in there. But, the residents were loud and clear. They wanted a little bit more open space preservation and less apartment units. And I'm confident that the board heard them, and, we'll find a solution if we're going to move forward with Civico.
So when will we know what's happening with Beal?
So the Board of Selectmen is going to discuss it at their upcoming meeting on Tuesday. So that Tuesday is going to be January 25th. So at their regularly scheduled meeting, they will have an agenda item to discuss next steps and provide feedback.
Okay. Now, is there a plan for more road work on in the Edgemere area?
There is still some additional work that needs to be completed. Yes, the lane shift needs to be wrapped up, and some additional work towards Purinton needs to be completed for the sewer project. But the vast majority of it is done, and we have heard that the apartment units will begin to be leased out in February or March of this year, and I think it'll take about 9 to 10 months to get them all rented out.
So people will be living in those apartments before we see that grocery store we're waiting for.
That is correct. Yeah.
But it should go up pretty quickly once they actually get, I think they've actually, have they put the foundation in or?
They have, yes, yep, that's in.
Yeah.
I don't know if
So
they're
it's,
waiting on steel or what, but yep, the foundation's in.
yeah. So hopefully it'll move quickly once, um, once springtime comes. Although everybody seems to work through the winter these days. Now,
Yes.
the fiber optic progress. Um, when will the whole town be covered with the fiber optic?
It was a 3-year rollout for the program that we are now, almost 18 months in. So we're a little over halfway through. I haven't heard of any major delays. Selco was very aggressive over last spring and summer and acquiring enough fiber or buying enough fiber to complete the project. So it's going along as planned. And more and more aspects of the town get the fiber placed into it on a daily basis, and we'll continue to work towards that 3-year goal.
And once your neighborhood is completed, do you have the upgrade or does a switch get clicked and the whole town gets done at the same time?
No, it's more of a neighborhood by neighborhood basis of individuals being able to transition from the traditional coax cable over to the fiber network.
And how would you know when your neighborhood's done?
That's a really good question. I don't know the answer to that. But I know Selco is eager to get the higher end product out there and available to residents. So I'm sure as they go through each of their various nodes, they provide that direct notification through the marketing department.
Oh. Because, for example, our neighborhood, we saw them pulling the wires through, which was interesting to watch. And all the people with young children would bring their kids to watch them working on the street. But, we don't know. Do they have to come back? Is it done? How do you know when it's done? What's different in your household? We just don't know.
It definitely needs attached from the pole to the house. So if there's been no exact work on your home where Selco would reach out to you and say, we need to, attach this to your house, then it's not ready yet.
Okay, so we have to wait. So the selectmen, who did this paper that the selectmen presented with their financial objectives for the upcoming year?
It's an effort out of this office, Alex Martinez and myself.
Well, they did a nice job. I just wondered if the selectmen did it themselves because I thought, how the heck would they have the time to just fight over sentences the way we always would argue over how the sentence should be framed? But it really was a nice presentation. And I just had a couple of questions about it. We did talk about the local receipts and the auto excise already. And we did receive the American Rescue Plan Act funds, and we got a lot of money.
Yes.
But that runs dry now, right?
So it's a one-time source of funds. The town was allocated $11.5 million, of which we received half of that, and we'll receive the second half in the summer months upcoming. So actually, within the last week, the U.S. Treasury has now finalized or published their final rule. So it's the final rules that will determine how those dollars were spent. And they made a lot of changes. And from what I understand on a summary basis at this point, a lot of positive changes to continue to allow for significant flexibility and broad use of those funds, which are very welcome. But as we talked about the whole time, until we see the final rules, we're going to approach our spending plans cautiously. So I'm glad that we did that. The final rule happens to be about 440 pages long. So we continue to digest that and receive information from the state and the National League of Cities and the International City Management Association about what the key provisions of that are. And so we'll begin those conversations with the Board of Selectmen. we've set aside or encumbered for particular use a little over $4 million at this point. So there's about $7 million, a little more than $7 million that haven't been allocated. 5.5 of that we actually don't even have in the bank yet. So, yep, we're continue to monitor it and move programs forward.
Okay. And so the town has gained on investments over the last several months anyhow. Hopefully we'll be able to hold on to that gain going forward. But OPEB benefits, the town's reached its goal, and are we going to be able to maintain that?
Yeah, so yeah, the pension side of things, we've met our goal for fully funding. We had another really good calendar year of double-digit investment returns in 2021, and now the market is making its corrections like it always does in January, and hopefully that's not prolonged and it's the normal cycle. But yep, so we have a plan in place to continue to fund the pension at an appropriate level. We are, consider some changes with regards to how much of an individual's pension is eligible for a cost of living increase. It's not something we talk about very often. Shrewsbury's, the minimum amount that a pension would receive an annual cost of living increase is $12,000, and the maximum amount that can receive a cost of living increase on anyone's pension is $18,000. And the town, of course, is at $12,000 because we are focused on fully funding before we, increased our payments. So it's a very nominal amount of money for retirees. I don't know if everyone realizes that if your pension's more than $18,000 in any city and town, it doesn't increase year over year. It's truly fixed. So the retirement board is considering where we are funding and what our plans are moving forward and what that base adjustment amount should be. And there'll likely be some actions taken or proposed for town meeting to be taken for that. But yeah, we have a very solid plan in place to maintain that funding level and ensure we don't move backwards.
And then the ash revenue always comes up, and the landfill has been getting full, and I'd say we've really stretched and maximized the use of the landfill and extended that revenue benefit for quite a few years now. Now we're saying it's going to be full by 2028.
Mm-hmm. Just around the corner.
How do you make more land there? How do you extend it further?
Yeah,
how do you pull a rabbit out of a hat?
Right. I don't think it can really be done with any of the current area. It would require an expansion of the landfill itself. So a lot of work would have to be done to be able to extend it. But we'll continue to work with Win, the operator of that, and see what their plans and intentions are. Yeah, we have stretched it out a lot. Things like adding the metal recovery facility and pulling all the metals out before it gets deposited over the last 8 to 10 years has really saved a lot of space. So we'll do everything we can. It's a vital part of our revenue, and it's a little less than 10% of our total local receipts, so it's important to us.
Is it safe? Is it still safe, I should say? The landfill.
As a long-term revenue source? Or?
No, is the landfill itself still considered safe?
Oh yeah, yep. So
No
the modern landfill technology with the liners and the fact that it is, a monofill where we're only adding ash from waste and waste energy incinerators. We know it's going in. It's much easier than managing like just a general open landfill like they have in the central U.S., the Midwest. It's a lot easier to manage than that.
So we get, for what's been reasonably safe all these years, we get what, over 1,500,000 or about that? a year?
About that.
How would we replace that?
That's a really good question. So what we've done through our financial objectives at this point is just, dedicated those revenues to other post-employment benefits, OPEB. OPEB isn't a requirement to be funded. And, strategically, if we say the ASH revenue is going to OPEB, if the ASH revenue goes away, we don't have to cut services. So it's maybe not the best in the absolute long run, but we pay our retiree health insurance benefits every year and would continue to do so. So that's the steps that we're taking in the financial objectives to ensure our longer term viability.
And that's why finding revenue, and I always joke about restaurants and so forth. That's why find revenue wherever you can get it. I joke about the car sales, I joke about the restaurants, but it all adds up, and we need to keep finding and creating more sources of revenue. And
it's true
for so many reasons, but this one we've benefited from in town for many, many years, and I've lost track of when it started. It was either early 80s or late 70s anyhow. And then there's the selectmen's commitment to the operational override. And I mean, it's their commitment, but the override's the override. So
right, it's managing the spending to ensure that at least 4 years go by without having to ask again, and we're in a solid financial position to be able to do that.
And you say we're in a solid financial position, and we are, but when we talk about a financial forecast for the next 3 to 5 years, I always get a little leery about predicting 3 to 5 years out, because we got hit with that in 2008. We didn't have 3 to 5 years to predict that was coming with the
Correct.
Don't call it a depression, call it what you want, but we're not going to have 3 to 5 years crystal ball to tell us. How do you respond to that? Because that's in the financial objectives also.
Yeah, so I mean, the data set that we have now with revenue, or with all of our financials, that was started under Dan Morgado, and I know he got a great data set from his predecessor as well, but Dan's foresight to maintain all that information and not start every budget process with new but build on is really playing to our benefit. And that we can now see, if we include COVID-19, 3 recessionary or depressionary cycles within our revenues, and we can model and predict that. Now, we don't know when they're going to happen, but we know what's likely going to happen. So you're right, getting beyond 3 to 5 years is really crystal balling things, but we have now 25 years worth of financial data that we can rely upon to make some good decisions.
Now, we're running out of time. I just wanted to make one more comment. When we talk about a building project being on time and under budget, I've started to get cynical about the under budget piece, because we can't focus on being under budget. We need to be focused on not going over budget and using the money as we appropriately get funded. Or do you just pad it so it looks like we're coming under budget? Just a little cynicism in there.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more. We should use the resources to build the right building appropriately so it lasts.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, well, we're out of time, and I'd like to say thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.